The wooden doors of the council hall loomed before Indira like the gates of her own execution. Her hand trembled as it rested on the swell of her belly, 5 months along now, visible enough that she could no longer hide it beneath loose tunics. The life inside her kicked gently, oblivious to the judgment waiting beyond those doors. "They're ready for you," said Elder Mira, her voice stripped of the warmth that had colored their interactions since Indira was a child. No warmth remained anywhere in the Silver Pine pack, not for her. Not since Damien had rejected her, claiming the child wasn't his, despite the bond they'd once shared, despite the truth she carried in her heart and body. Indira straightened her spine and pushed through the doors. The council chamber was circular, built from ancient pine that had witnessed generations of pack decisions. Torches flickered in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across the faces of the 7 elders who sat in their high-backed chairs, arranged in a semicircle that reminded Indira of predators closing in on wounded prey. Pack members lined the walls, people she'd grown up with, trained alongside, celebrated festivals with. Now they watched her with expressions ranging from pity to disgust. At the center of the semicircle stood Seer Cassandra, the eldest wolf in their territory. Her milky eyes saw things others couldn't, and those eyes fixed on Indira's belly with an intensity that made Indira's wolf whimper and retreat deep within her consciousness. "Indira Shadowborn," Elder Thomas intoned, his gravel voice echoing through the chamber. "You stand before this council to answer for the life you carry." "I've done nothing wrong," Indira said, hating how her voice wavered. "Being pregnant isn't a crime." "No," Seer Cassandra rasped, stepping forward with her gnarled walking stick tapping against the stone floor. "But carrying that child is a curse upon us all." The seer moved closer, and Indira fought every instinct that screamed at her to run. Cassandra's weathered hand reached out, hovering over Indira's belly without touching. The air around them grew thick, charged with ancient magic that made Indira's teeth ache. "I have dreamed of this child," Cassandra whispered, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent chamber. "Night after night, the visions come. I see darkness flowing from them like water, drowning our packlands. I see our warriors falling, our children crying, our territory consumed by shadow and void." Her milky eyes fixed on Indira's face. "Your child bears the mark of the void, a cursed bloodline thought extinct for 3 centuries. Any pack that harbors them will be destroyed." "No." The word barely escaped Indira's constricted throat. "No, you're wrong. My baby is innocent. They haven't even been born yet. The mark is there." Cassandra's certainty was absolute and damning. "I have consulted the ancient texts, cross-referenced the prophecies. There is no doubt. This child carries destruction in their very blood." Elder Mira leaned forward, and for a moment, Indira thought she saw sympathy in the older woman's eyes. "Indira, we understand this isn't your fault. You couldn't have known—" "There is a solution," interrupted Elder Thomas. "The texts speak of a ritual that can be performed before birth. The pregnancy can be ended. You would be cleansed, welcomed back into the pack as a full member. You're young. You can have other children, blessed children. Get away from my baby." The words ripped from Indira's chest, her wolf surging forward with such force that her eyes flashed gold. Her hands cradled her belly protectively, and she bared her teeth at the council, an act of defiance that gasped through the assembled pack members. "You will not touch my child." "Then you leave us no choice," Elder Thomas said, rising to his feet. The other elders stood as well, their unified movement a wall of rejection. "By the authority vested in this council, we hereby banish you from Silver Pine Pack territory. You have 3 days to gather what you can carry and depart. If you or your child are found within our borders after that time, you will both be executed for the safety of the pack." The world tilted beneath Indira's feet. Banishment. She'd been born in these forests, had run through these trees in her wolf form since she was 13 and first shifted. Her parents were buried in the pack's sacred ground. Everything she'd ever known existed within these borders. 3 days, Elder Mira repeated softly, and this time there was definite sympathy in her voice. I'm sorry, child. Truly. Indira looked around the chamber, searching for a single face that might show support. Someone who would stand up and say this was madness. She found only averted eyes and closed expressions. Even her former friends couldn't meet her gaze. She was alone. I'll be gone by morning, Indira said, her voice steadier than she felt. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her broken. And when my child is born healthy and blessed, I hope you all remember this moment. I hope your certainty turns to ash in your mouths. She turned on her heel and strode from the chamber, her head high despite the tears threatening to spill. Behind her, whispers erupted, but she didn't listen. She couldn't afford to break. Not yet. Not until she and her baby were far from this place. The door to her small cabin hung open. Someone had been through her things, she could tell immediately. Not that she owned much. Her life's possessions fit into a worn leather pack. Clothes, a water skin, dried meat and journey bread from her meager supplies, a thin blanket, the silver locket that had belonged to her mother. She changed into her sturdiest boots and warmest cloak. As she worked, her hands moved to her belly. I'm sorry, little one, she whispered. I'm so sorry I can't give you the life I wanted for you. But I promise, I swear on my wolf and my soul, I will keep you safe. No prophecy, no curse, no counsel will take you from me. The baby kicked in response, a flutter against her palm that strengthened her resolve. Indira left at twilight, slipping through the border markers before full darkness fell. She didn't look back. The neutral territories were as dangerous as they were lawless. Without pack protection, a lone wolf, especially a pregnant one, was vulnerable to rogues, wild predators, and the harsh elements. Indira traveled by night when possible, using her wolf's enhanced senses to navigate terrain that grew increasingly treacherous. 3 days into her exile, the forests gave way to rocky foothills. 5 days after that, the foothills became mountains, their peaks still crowned with snow despite the approaching summer. Indira climbed because going around would take weeks she didn't have, and because something instinctual pulled her north. Some whisper of her wolf that promised safety lay in that direction. Her supplies ran out on the 8th day. She caught what small game she could, but hunting while pregnant and alone was difficult. The higher altitude made breathing harder, and the baby seemed to press against her lungs with increasing insistence. On the 10th day, Indira's strength finally gave out. She'd been navigating a narrow mountain pass, placing each foot carefully on loose scree that threatened to slide with every step. The world swam in her vision. When was the last time she'd eaten? Yesterday morning? The day before? She couldn't remember. Her foot slipped. Indira caught herself on an outcropping of rock, her fingers finding purchase, but her legs wouldn't respond properly. Her muscles were water, her bones hollow. Slowly, inevitably, she sank to her knees on the rocky ground. "Not here!" she gasped, one hand pressed to her belly. "Please, not here! Just a little further, little one. I just need to rest for a moment." Her eyes closed, despite her best efforts to keep them open. The cold stone beneath her cheek was almost a comfort after days of relentless movement. Just a few minutes. She'd rest for just a few minutes, and then she'd keep going. She'd keep going. She had to keep going. The darkness pulled her under. Voices woke her, deep male voices speaking in tones too low for her to understand. Strong hands lifted her with surprising gentleness. Indira tried to open her eyes, tried to fight, but her body refused to obey. Carefully, someone commanded, a voice that resonated with unmistakable authority. "She's with child." "My lord, we should keep moving. If she's a rogue, I don't care what she is. We're not leaving her to die on this mountain." Warmth enveloped her. A cloak, she realized distantly, lined with fur and smelling of pine and something else. Something that made her wolf stir for the first time in days. "Safety," her wolf whispered. "Mate." Indira forced her eyes open. She was being carried by a man whose face she couldn't quite focus on, but whose presence filled her awareness like the sun breaking through clouds. Around them, other men moved with military precision. Guards, she realized, wearing matching leather armor, marked with a silver wolf emblem she didn't recognize. "Water," said the man holding her, and his skin was immediately pressed to her lips. Indira drank desperately, some primitive part of her trusting that whatever was happening, she wasn't in immediate danger. "Easy," the man murmured. "Not too fast." "You'll make yourself sick." His voice did something strange to her chest, made her heart beat in a rhythm that felt simultaneously wrong and perfectly right. Indira blinked until her vision cleared, until she could finally see the face of her rescuer. Time stopped. He was beautiful in the way that mountains are beautiful, harsh and commanding and impossible to look away from. His face was all strong lines and sharp angles, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, his jaw covered in dark stubble. But it was his eyes that trapped her, held her captive, silver gray like storm clouds, with an intelligence and depth that suggested he'd seen far too much of the world's darkness. Those eyes widened as they met hers, and Indira felt it. The snap of recognition, the pull that every wolf knew from stories and dreams, but few ever experienced. The mate bond, settling into place like a key turning in a lock. "Impossible," the man breathed, and Indira saw her own shock reflected in his face. "My lord?" One of the guards stepped closer, concern evident. "What is it?" The man, "my lord," the guard had called him, didn't answer immediately. His arms tightened around Indira fractionally, protectively. Then his eyes dropped to her swollen belly, and something complicated crossed his features. "She's pregnant," another guard said unnecessarily, stating the obvious. "I know." The words were barely a rumble in his chest. "I can sense the child. There's a power around them, something old." His gaze returned to Indira's face. "Who are you? Who's the father?" "No one," Indira whispered, exhaustion making her honest. "He rejected us. We're alone." Something fierce flashed in those storm-gray eyes. "Not anymore." "My lord, we can't," began one of the guards, a man with a beta's bearing and sandy hair. "If she's been cast out, there could be reasons." "I don't care about reasons, Marcus." The authority in his voice was absolute. "This woman is my—" He stopped abruptly, seeming to reconsider his words. "This woman and her child are under my protection. We're taking her to the stronghold." Marcus opened his mouth as if to argue, then closed it again. He bowed his head. "As you command, Alpha King." Alpha King. The title penetrated Indira's foggy awareness. She was being held by Bjorn Frostwalker, the legendary ruler whose territory spanned the entire northern realm, who commanded the largest and most powerful pack in living memory, and somehow, impossibly, he was her mate. "What's your name?" Bjorn asked, his voice gentler now, meant only for her. "Indira?" she managed. "Indira Shadowborn." "Indira." He said it like a promise. "I'm taking you somewhere safe. You and your pup. I need you to trust me." Trust. The word felt foreign after everything she'd endured, but his arms around her were steady, and the mate bond hummed between them like a living thing, and her wolf who had been silent and afraid for so long, was purring contentedly for the first time since Damien's rejection. "I don't understand," Indira whispered. "How can you be? I'm already pregnant. The bond doesn't work like this." "I know." Bjorn began walking, carrying her as if she weighed nothing, his guards falling into formation around them. "But it is working like this. And I learned long ago not to question the gifts fate provides, no matter how unexpected." Indira should have been afraid. She should have been suspicious, should have demanded answers and explanations. But exhaustion and hope and the intoxicating rightness of being in her mate's arms overwhelmed every rational thought. As consciousness slipped away again, she heard Bjorn speak to his men. "Send word ahead. Prepare the royal quarters. And someone inform the healers. I want the best attending to her immediately." "The royal quarters, my lord?" Marcus sounded stunned. "Did I stutter?" "No, my lord, of course not." Indira let the darkness take her again, but this time it didn't feel like dying. This time it felt like falling into something that might, impossibly, miraculously catch her. The room they gave her was fit for royalty. That was the problem. Indira stood in the center of the chamber, turning slowly to take in the carved oak furniture, the four-poster bed draped in furs and silk, the tapestries depicting wolves running beneath full moons. A fire crackled in the hearth large enough to roast a full deer. Through the tall windows, she could see the courtyard below and the mountains beyond, their peaks catching the last rays of sunset. It was beautiful. It was a cage. She pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the baby's familiar movements, stronger now after 2 days of rest and proper food. The royal healer, a kind woman named Luna with silver streaking her dark hair, had examined her thoroughly upon arrival. "Malnourished and exhausted, but the baby is healthy," Luna had declared with obvious relief. "Strong heartbeat, active. Your child is a fighter, like their mother, like their mother," as if Indira had done anything but fail at every turn. A knock at the door made her tense. "Come in," she called, expecting Luna or perhaps one of the servants who kept bringing food she didn't request. Bjorn entered carrying a tray himself, and the sight was so incongruous, this massive alpha king with his battle-scarred hands carefully balancing dishes, that Indira almost laughed. "You don't have servants for that?" she asked, her walls rising automatically. "I have hundreds of servants." Bjorn kicked the door closed with his heel and crossed to the small table near the window. "But I wanted to see you myself. Make sure you were eating. Luna checks on me every few hours." "I'm sure she reports back. She does." He set down the tray: roasted meat, fresh bread, vegetables and butter, and a sweet cream pudding that made Indira's mouth water despite herself. "She says you pick at your food, that you barely sleep, that you spend most of your time staring out the window like you're planning an escape route." Indira's silence confirmed all of it. Bjorn pulled out a chair, the wood creaking under his weight. "Sit, eat with me. Is that a command from my Alpha King?" The words came out sharper than she intended, barbed with the fear she couldn't quite suppress. Something flickered in his storm-gray eyes, hurt, quickly masked. "It's a request from someone who's concerned about you." He paused, then added quietly, "From your mate." The words settled between them like a living thing. Mate. The bond hummed constantly now, a warm thread connecting her chest to his, growing stronger with proximity. Her wolf yearned to close the distance, to accept what fate offered. But Indira had learned the hard way that fate was cruel, and gifts always came with hidden costs. "I don't understand what you want from me," she said, remaining standing. "Nobody does something for nothing. You're the Alpha King. You could have any unmated she-wolf in your territory. Why would you—" She gestured at herself, at her swollen belly. "Why would you claim someone already pregnant with another man's child? Someone cursed?" Bjorn was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving to the fire. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain. "I told myself I'd never feel this bond again. After Astrid died, after I lost our pup before they even took their first breath, I locked that part of myself away. I've been Alpha King for 12 years, Indira. I've had advisors suggest matches, alliances through marriage. I've refused them all because I knew nothing would compare to what I had with her." Indira found herself moving closer despite her reservations, drawn by the rawness in his tone. "And then I found you on that mountain," Bjorn continued, finally meeting her eyes, "dying in the snow, protecting your child with the last of your strength. And I felt it, That snap of recognition, that pull I thought I'd never experience again. The moon goddess gave me a second chance, and I won't dishonor that gift by questioning it. Even though the child isn't yours, your child will be mine the moment you accept this bond. His certainty was absolute. I'll raise them as my own, love them as my own. They'll want for nothing. The offer was everything she'd desperately wished for during those long, terrifying nights in the wilderness. But Cassandra's words echoed in her memory. Any pack that harbors them will be destroyed. You don't know what you're offering to protect, Indira whispered. The seer said my baby carries the mark of the void. A curse. If I stay here, I could destroy everything you've built. Bjorn rose from his chair with fluid grace despite his size. He crossed to her, stopping close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, but he didn't touch her. I've consulted my own seers. They don't speak of curses. They speak of power, yes, of change, but not destruction. How can you be sure they're right and Cassandra was wrong? I can't. His honesty surprised her. But I trust my instincts, Indira, and every instinct I have says your child is meant for something important, something good. He lifted his hands slowly, telegraphing his movement, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her cheek with surprising gentleness. I also trust this. The mate bond doesn't lie. If you were meant to bring destruction to my pack, the moon goddess wouldn't have bound us together. Indira wanted to believe him. Gods, she wanted it so badly her chest ached. But Damien had made promises too, and those promises had turned to ash. I need time, she said, her voice breaking. I need to think. Bjorn's thumb traced her cheekbone, and the simple touch sent warmth flooding through the bond. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. He stepped back, creating distance that immediately felt like loss. But eat something, please, for the baby if not for yourself. After he left, Indira did eat, and the food was the best she'd ever tasted, and she hated how easy it would be to get used to this. The whispers started on her third day in the fortress. Indira heard them as she walked through the gardens, Luna at her side pointing out medicinal herbs. The guards at their posts, 2 servants near the rose bushes, a group of warriors training in the yard below. All of them fell silent when she passed, then resumed their conversations in hushed tones once they thought she was out of earshot. Cursed woman the king brought back. Already pregnant. Can you imagine? Heard she was cast out for a reason. Luna's hand found Indira's elbow, steadying. Ignore them. Court gossip is as predictable as the tides. They're afraid of me. Indira touched her belly protectively. Of my baby. They're afraid of change. Bjorn has been unmated since Astrid's death. Some of them had begun to think he'd never claim anyone, and now suddenly he brings home a pregnant mate? It challenges their expectations. Luna guided them toward a bench overlooking a fountain. Give them time. Let them see you're not a threat. But that was the problem. Indira didn't know if she was a threat or not. Cassandra's prophecy haunted her dreams, images of darkness and destruction bleeding into her waking hours. That evening, Bjorn found her in the gardens again. The moon was 3/4 full, painting everything in silver light. He'd shed his formal attire for simple training clothes, his hair damp with sweat. You've been sparring, Indira observed. Marcus insisted I was getting rusty. Bjorn settled onto the bench beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. He kicked my ass thoroughly to prove his point. The mental image of his beta taking down the massive Alpha King made Indira's lips twitch. I find that hard to believe. Marcus was my father's beta before mine. He taught me everything I know about fighting. Bjorn stretched his long legs out, tilting his face toward the moon. He's earned the right to remind me I'm not invincible. They sat in companionable silence, the fountain's burble and the night insect's song filling the space between them. Indira found herself studying his profile. The strong nose, the scar through his eyebrow, the way moonlight caught in his dark hair. Tell me about her, she said softly. About Astrid. Bjorn's jaw tightened, but he didn't deflect. She was fierce, a warrior before she was anything else. We grew up together, trained together. The mate bond snapped into place when we were 17, and we were mated by 18. His voice went distant with memory. She got pregnant 2 years later. We were so happy, so naive, thinking we were untouchable. What happened? Border war with the Eastern Coalition. They'd been testing our defenses for months, and it finally escalated. Astrid was 6 months along, safely behind our lines. Or so we thought. A raiding party broke through, his hands clenched into fists. By the time I got there, she was already dying. The raiders had targeted her specifically because she was my mate. They knew it would break me. Indira's heart cracked for him. I'm so sorry. I killed every last one of them. Marcus had to physically drag me away from the carnage. Bjorn finally looked at her, and his eyes held old ghosts. I didn't think I'd survive losing her. The bond severance nearly destroyed me. I spent months wishing I'd died with her. But you didn't. No. Because my pack needed me. Because giving up would have meant their deaths were meaningless. He shifted on the bench, angling toward her. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand. I know what loss feels like. I know what it means to fear for someone you love. And I'm choosing this anyway. I'm choosing you, Indira. Whatever comes. The mate bond flared between them, responding to the raw emotion in his words. Indira felt her wolf pressing forward, urging her to close the distance, to accept what he offered. I'm scared, she admitted, the words barely a whisper. I'm terrified that Cassandra was right, that my baby will bring destruction, that I'll be the reason your pack suffers. Bjorn reached out slowly, giving her time to refuse, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused, his grip gentle despite the strength she knew he possessed. Then we'll face it together. Whatever comes, you won't be alone anymore. Indira wanted to believe him. In the moonlit garden, with the mate bond singing between them, and his hands solid in hers, she almost did. The hammering on her chamber door jolted Indira from restless sleep. She sat up, one hand instinctively protecting her belly, as voices shouted in the hallway outside. Must evacuate the lady immediately. Orders from the king. Breached the outer gate. Luna burst through the door, her face pale with fear. Indira, get up. We need to move you now. What's happening? Indira stumbled from the bed, her pregnant body awkward with sudden movement. Your former pack is here. They've come with others, a coalition. They're demanding you be turned over. Luna grabbed Indira's cloak, throwing it around her shoulders. There are extremists with them. We have intelligence that they plan to... The window exploded inward. Glass sprayed across the room as 3 figures dressed in black crashed through, rolling to their feet with weapons drawn. Indira screamed as Luna shoved her behind the bed, the healer's eyes flashing gold as her wolf surged forward. Get back! Luna snarled, her canines extending. The lead assassin ignored her, focusing on Indira. The cursed mother dies tonight. The prophecy ends before it begins. He lunged. Luna intercepted him, her partially shifted form tackling him mid-leap. They went down in a tangle of claws and teeth, crashing into the furniture. The other 2 assassins split up. One engaged Luna, the other circled toward Indira's hiding place. Indira scrambled backward, her pregnant body making her slow, vulnerable. The assassin raised a wicked curved blade that gleamed with something dark. Poison, she realized with horror. If he cut her, even a scratch might kill the baby. The chamber door exploded off its hinges. Bjorn entered like a force of nature, his wolf so close to the surface that his eyes glowed pure silver. He took in the scene instantly, Luna bleeding but fighting, the assassin bearing down on Indira, and something primal and terrifying transformed his face. The snarl that ripped from his throat wasn't human. He moved with speed that defied his size, crossing the room in a blur. His hand closed around the assassin's throat, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. The man's blade clattered to the floor. You dare threaten my mate. Each word was punctuated by Bjorn's claws extending, piercing the assassin's neck. My child. Not yours, the assassin choked out. Cursed. Bjorn's other hand transformed fully, massive claws erupting. Mine. He ripped the assassin's throat out. The body dropped. Bjorn spun toward the other attackers, his movements fluid and lethal. Luna had already dispatched one, his body lying still near the door. The third tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Bjorn's claws found his spine. Silence fell, broken only by heavy breathing and the crackle of the fire. Bjorn stood amid the carnage, his chest heaving, blood painting his hands and chest. Slowly, his wolf receded, his claws retracting, his eyes fading back to their normal storm gray. He turned to Indira, who was pressed against the wall behind the bed, shaking. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, barely controlled. Did they touch you? Indira shook her head mutely. In 3 strides he reached her, his bloodied hands hovering near her face but not touching, as if afraid he might stain her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to see. You saved me. The words broke free. You saved us. Something cracked in his expression. He pulled her into his arms, carefully, so carefully despite the violence still singing through his muscles, and Indira buried her face against his chest, not caring about the blood, not caring about anything except the solid reality of him between her and death. I won't let them take you, Bjorn murmured into her hair. I don't care who they are or what authority they claim. You're mine to protect, both of you. Marcus appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene with grim acceptance. My lord, the coalition leaders are demanding an audience. They have 36 warriors at the gates. Let them wait. Bjorn didn't release Indira. First, we secure the fortress. Double the guard on these chambers. I want a full sweep for any other infiltrators. Already underway. Marcus hesitated. My lord, they're not leaving without an answer. Caden is invoking old pack law. He says as Indira's former alpha, he has rights to her judgment. He has no rights to anything. Bjorn's arms tightened fractionally around Indira. But I'll speak to them. In the throne room, in 1 hour. And Marcus? Summon the full court. If I'm doing this, everyone will witness it. After Marcus left and Luna departed to get her injuries treated, after the bodies were removed and guards posted, Bjorn finally released Indira. He cupped her face with hands he'd washed clean, his eyes searching hers. What I'm about to do will change everything, he said quietly. Once I say the words publicly, there's no taking them back. The political ramifications will be significant. I need to know, can you accept that? Can you accept me? Indira thought of Damien's rejection, of the council's banishment, of dying alone on a mountain. Then she thought of Bjorn carrying her to safety, of him bringing her meals, of him sitting with her in moonlit gardens sharing his pain, of him bursting through her door like an avenging angel, putting himself between her and death without hesitation. The mate bond pulsed between them, warm and right and inevitable. Yes, she whispered. I accept you. I accept this. Bjorn's eyes fluttered closed for a moment, relief transforming his features. When they opened again, they blazed with fierce determination. Then, stay by my side in that throne room. Let them all see what it means to threaten what's mine. The throne room was packed with bodies, Bjorn's court, his warriors, and at the center, the delegation from the coalition. Indira recognized Caden immediately, tall and lean with sharp features and eyes like chips of amber. He'd been alpha of Silverpine for 20 years, stern but fair, or so she'd always thought. Now he looked at her with contempt, barely masked by diplomatic courtesy. Beside him stood other alphas she didn't recognize, and behind them, clusters of warriors wearing various pack insignia. The sheer number of them made Indira's stomach clench. If this came to violence, Bjorn's forces would be outnumbered. Bjorn sat on his throne, relaxed but radiating power, with Indira standing to his right, Marcus to his left. He'd offered her a seat, but she'd refused. She wouldn't hide behind his throne like a coward. Alpha Caden, Bjorn said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. You've brought an army to my gates. I assume you have good reason. Caden stepped forward. We come to reclaim what was rightfully cast out. The woman standing beside you carries a cursed child. Her name is Indira, Bjorn interrupted coldly. Use it. Caden's jaw tightened. Indira was banished from Silverpine Pack for carrying the mark of the void. Our seer has prophesied destruction. We demand she be returned to face proper judgment. The child must be what? Bjorn's voice dropped to something dangerous. Finish that sentence carefully, Alpha Caden. The tension in the room thickened. Caden pulled a leather-bound book from his coat, its pages yellowed with age. The ancient texts are clear. 3 times in recorded history, children bearing this mark have been born. 3 times, their packs were destroyed within a generation. Bloodlines ended. Territories consumed by rival forces. He held up the book like a weapon. We cannot allow this to happen again. The child must be eliminated before birth or contained after. Those are the only options. Those are your options, Bjorn corrected. They are not mine. Another alpha stepped forward, older, with gray threading his red beard. Alpha King, we respect your authority, but this threat extends beyond your borders. If the prophecy is true, the destruction won't limit itself to your pack. We all have a responsibility to our people, and I have a responsibility to mine. Bjorn rose from his throne, his full height commanding immediate attention. You speak of ancient texts and old prophecies, but you missed the most important detail in your research. He gestured to Marcus, who produced a different book, newer, its pages carefully preserved behind protective covers. This is from the Northern Archives, records kept by my family for 15 generations. The 3 children you reference did indeed bring change to their packs. But not destruction, transformation. The first integrated 2 warring packs into one, ending a century of bloodshed. The second developed new techniques for farming and storing food that allowed his pack to survive a decade of harsh winters. The third discovered the mate bond could exist between humans and wolves, expanding our numbers and genetic diversity. Bjorn's eyes swept the room. Yes, their old orders were destroyed, but what rose from those ashes was stronger. Better. The prophecy doesn't speak of a curse, it speaks of a catalyst, a force for change. Pretty words, Caden spat. But you're willing to gamble thousands of lives on your interpretation? I'm not gambling. I'm choosing to trust what I know to be true. Bjorn descended the throne steps, each footfall echoing through the silent hall. And here is what I know. This woman is my fated mate. The moon goddess herself bound us together. That child she carries, cursed or blessed or something in between, is mine to protect, mine to raise, mine to love. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Indira's heart hammered against her ribs. You publicly claim her? Caden's voice rose. A woman already pregnant with another man's bastard? Have you lost your mind? Bjorn's hand found Indira's, threading their fingers together. The touch sent warmth flooding through the mate bond, strength she desperately needed. I claim her. I claim the child. And I declare before all witnesses, anyone who threatens them threatens me directly. Any hand raised against them is an act of war against my crown. The throne room erupted. Voices shouted over each other, shock, approval, outrage. Indira stood frozen, her hand locked in Bjorn's, unable to believe what he'd just done. He'd painted a target on his back. He'd chosen her over political safety, over the easy path, over everything sensible. He'd chosen her. Caden's face had gone purple with rage. You're a fool. When that child brings destruction to your pack, don't expect sympathy from the rest of us. I won't need it. Bjorn's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Because I'm right, and you're all cowards, too afraid of change to see possibility in it. Now get out of my fortress, all of you, and spread the word to every pack territory. Indira Shadowborn is under my protection. Her child is under my protection. The next assassins sent will find themselves answered by my full army. For a moment, Indira thought Caden might actually attack. His wolf was there, just beneath his skin, his eyes flickering gold. But he was outnumbered in Bjorn's own stronghold, and even rage couldn't overcome tactical reality. This isn't over, Caden promised darkly. The Grand Council will hear of this. They won't let you harbor a cursed child, Alpha King or not. Let them try to stop me. Bjorn's smile was all teeth. Now, get out. The coalition departed, their warriors filing from the throne room with hostile glances backward. Bjorn's court remained, conversations bubbling up in urgent whispers. Through it all, Bjorn never released Indira's hand. When the last of the coalition had gone, Marcus approached, his expression carefully neutral. That was dramatic, my lord. It needed to be. Bjorn finally looked down at Indira, his eyes softening. Are you all right? She should say yes. She should thank him for his protection, for his declaration. Instead, what came out was, why? Why what? Why would you risk everything for me, for a baby that isn't even yours? You could have any mate you wanted, someone politically advantageous, someone without complications, someone who isn't you. Bjorn's free hand came up to cup her cheek. I already explained this, Indira. The mate bond doesn't lie. You are mine, as surely as I am yours. Everything else is just noise. The throne room was still full of people, but in that moment, it felt like just the two of them. The bond hummed between them, stronger now, fed by his public claiming. Indira felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling, felt hope taking root in soil she'd thought salted beyond growth. I'm still scared, she admitted. Good, fear keeps us careful. He leaned down, his forehead touching hers. But you're not alone in it anymore. Remember that. For the first time since Cassandra's prophecy, Indira let herself believe him. 3 days after Bjorn's declaration, Indira stood in the highest tower of the fortress, looking out over the moonlit kingdom. The full moon hung heavy and silver, painting the world in shades of gray and white. Her belly pressed against the stone wall, 6 months now, the baby more active with each passing day. She heard him approach before he spoke, the mate bond alerting her to his presence. I thought I might find you here, Bjorn said, joining her at the wall. Luna said you've been restless. The baby won't stop kicking. I think they can feel my anxiety. Indira placed a hand over her belly, feeling a strong movement in response. There's been news? The Grand Council has called an emergency session. They're displeased with my decision to harbor you. Indira's chest tightened with guilt. This is what I was afraid of. I'm destroying your— Stop. Bjorn turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. You're not destroying anything. The Grand Council has been looking for an excuse to challenge my authority for years. This isn't about you. It's about politics and power. But if I wasn't here, if you weren't here, I'd still be half alive, going through the motions, ruling without purpose beyond duty. His thumbs traced circles on her shoulders. You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever, Indira. Don't you understand that? She wanted to believe him, but the shadows of her past wouldn't release their grip. I need to tell you something. About what happened. About Damien. Bjorn guided her to a bench set against the tower wall, settling beside her. Tell me. The words stuck in Indira's throat, shame making them difficult to speak. But Bjorn had been nothing but honest with her. He deserved the same. We weren't fated mates, she began. Just compatible. He was handsome and charming, and I was young and stupid enough to believe his promises. Her hands twisted in her lap. When I told him I was pregnant, he claimed the child couldn't be his, said I must have been with someone else. He rejected me in front of the whole pack, called me a whore who was trying to trap him. Bjorn's jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. I had no way to prove the baby was his, no way to fight his rejection. The pack believed him because he was the alpha's nephew, and I was nobody important. The old pain welled up, familiar as a scar. For 2 months, I endured the whispers, the accusations. I was going to leave anyway. But then Cassandra had her vision, and suddenly it wasn't just Damien rejecting me. It was everyone, the whole pack, united in believing I carried something monstrous. You carry something miraculous, Bjorn said fiercely, and Damien is a fool who doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as you. I spent so long thinking I was unlovable, Indira continued, the confession pouring out now that the dam had broken. That there was something fundamentally wrong with me. That even my own child would grow up ashamed of their mother. Look at me. Bjorn waited until she met his eyes. There is nothing wrong with you. Damien's rejection was about his own weakness, not your worth. And your child. His hand covered hers on her belly, large and warm. Your child will grow up knowing they have a mother who crossed mountains alone to protect them. A mother fierce enough to face down prophecies and councils and assassins. They will be proud. How can you be so sure? Because I'm already proud of you. His voice dropped to something softer, more vulnerable. Indira, when Astrid died, I locked away every soft part of myself. I became all duty, all responsibility. I told myself it was enough. I told myself I didn't need or want anything else. His thumb traced across her knuckles. But then you stumbled into my life, already carrying your own grief, your own burdens, and you were still fighting, still protecting, still hoping despite every reason not to. How could I not fall in love with that? Indira's breath caught. Love? Love, he confirmed. I know it's fast. I know we've barely known each other 2 weeks, but the mate bond, it just confirms what I already feel. I love you, Indira. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you keep trying to protect everyone except yourself. I even love your mistrust, because you've earned the right to it. Tears spilled down Indira's cheeks. I don't know if I can say it back yet. I want to, but I'm scared. I know. Bjorn wiped her tears with gentle fingers. I'm not asking you to say anything you're not ready for. I just needed you to know. Before the Grand Council makes their move, before whatever comes next, I needed you to know you are loved. Completely, without conditions. The mate bond swelled between them, fed by emotion and proximity. Indira felt her wolf pushing forward, urging her to close the final distance. For once, her human side didn't fight it. She leaned in, hesitant, testing. Bjorn went completely still, letting her control the moment. When her lips touched his, it was gentle, a question, not a demand. He answered with heartbreaking tenderness. The kiss deepened slowly, carefully, mindful of her pregnancy and her fragility. His hand came up to cradle her face, his other arm wrapping around her back for support. The mate bond sang with rightness, with completion, and Indira felt something in her chest that had been broken since Damien's rejection began to heal. When they finally pulled apart, Bjorn rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since the moment I found you. I thought I'd never trust anyone again, Indira admitted. Never let anyone close. But you make it feel possible. It is possible. We just have to be brave enough to try. They sat together under the full moon, Indira tucked against Bjorn's side, his hand resting on her belly where the baby kicked against his palm. For the first time in months, Indira felt something like peace. She should have known it wouldn't last. The Grand Council's representatives arrived at dawn, their formal procession announced by trumpets and ceremony. Indira watched from her window as the delegation entered the fortress, 12 members in robes marked with the symbols of their territories, flanked by honor guards wearing the council's silver and black. "They've come to deliver the ultimatum in person," Luna said from the doorway. "Bjorn wants you present when they make their formal statement. Is that wise? Won't my presence just antagonize them? Probably. But he's making a point. You're not some shameful secret to be hidden away." Luna's expression softened. "He's fighting for you, Indira. Try to let him." The throne room was arranged for formal proceedings, with Bjorn seated on his throne and his full council assembled. Indira stood at his right hand, exactly where she'd been when he made his public claiming. Marcus was at his left, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword. The Grand Council's spokeswoman was a severe woman named Helene, her gray hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She approached the throne with a document sealed in wax and silver. "Alpha King Bjorn Frostwalker," she intoned formally. "The Grand Council, acting as the governing body over all wolf territories, has reviewed your recent actions regarding the woman called Indira Shadowborn." Bjorn's expression remained neutral. "And? The Council finds your protection of a prophesied cursed child to be in violation of the ancient accords. We cannot permit one alpha, regardless of his power, to endanger all wolf territories for personal reasons." Helene broke the seal and unrolled the document. "Therefore, the Council issues the following decree. You will renounce your claim on Indira Shadowborn and surrender her child to Council custody upon birth. The child will be studied, contained, and if necessary, neutralized." Neutralized. Bjorn's voice was deadly quiet. "Clarify that term. The child will be assessed for the presence of the mark of the void. If confirmed, they will be executed humanely." Indira's knees nearly buckled. Marcus's hand appeared at her elbow, steadying her. "And if I refuse?" Bjorn asked. "Then you will be declared unfit for your title. Your lands will be placed under council stewardship, and you will face exile." Helene's eyes were cold as winter. "We take no pleasure in this, Alpha King. But the safety of all our people must supersede your personal attachment." Silence filled the throne room. Indira felt every eye on her, some sympathetic, others calculating. Bjorn sat perfectly still, his face carved from stone. "How long do I have to decide?" he finally asked. "You have until the next full moon, 4 weeks. If you have not complied by then, council forces will enforce the decree." Helene rolled up the document. "Choose wisely, Alpha King. Some battles cannot be won." After the council delegation departed, Bjorn's advisors immediately began arguing. "This is madness," one of the council members said. "My lord, you cannot risk the entire kingdom for one woman." "She's my mate," Bjorn interrupted. "A mate bond can be rejected," another advisor insisted. "It will be painful, yes, but you've survived bond severance before. You can survive it again. The kingdom needs you. Enough." Bjorn's command silenced the room. "I will make my decision, but I will make it without a chorus of advisors telling me to abandon my mate. Leave me." The room emptied quickly. Indira started to follow, to give him space, but his voice stopped her. "Not you. Please." She turned back. Bjorn had slumped forward on his throne, his head in his hands, and she'd never seen him look so defeated. "I'm sorry," Indira said, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. If I leave, they'll hunt you down." Bjorn looked up, and his eyes were bloodshot. "The moment you're outside my protection, they'll take you. The council, the coalition, the extremists, they'll all come for you and the baby." He rose, descending the throne steps to take her hands. "I can't let that happen. I won't. But I can't let you lose everything either. Your title, your lands, your people. My people will survive without me. They won't survive the precedent of bowing to the council's tyranny." He pulled her close, careful of her belly. "But there might be another option. A place I can send you where they won't find you. A sanctuary, protected by ancient magic, where you can give birth safely. Hope and despair warred in Indira's chest. And you? I'll stay here. Hold them off as long as I can. Then, when the baby is born and you're both strong enough, I'll come for you. We'll disappear together if we have to, build a new life somewhere they can't touch us. You'd give up your kingdom? Your title? I'd give up anything for you. His certainty was absolute. But this way, maybe we buy enough time to prove them wrong. If your child is born healthy and blessed, if the prophecy doesn't come true the way they fear, the council will have no grounds to continue hunting you. It was logical. It was sensible. It was the careful, strategic choice that protected the most people. It felt like abandonment. How long would we be separated? Indira asked quietly. A few months, 3, maybe 4. Just long enough for you to give birth and recover. Months. Months of being alone again, cut off from the one person who made her feel safe, the one person who'd chosen her despite everything. But what choice did they have? All right, she whispered. I'll go. Bjorn's relief was palpable, but it was cut through with grief. I'll arrange everything. Marcus will take you personally, with my most trusted guards. You'll be safe, Indira. I swear it. That night, Indira packed the small bag she'd arrived with, adding the finer clothes Luna had given her, supplies for the journey. Bjorn came to her chambers at midnight, when the rest of the fortress slept. The escort leaves at dawn, he said, lingering in the doorway. I needed to see you one more time. Indira crossed to him, and he pulled her into his arms with careful desperation. They stood that way for a long moment, just breathing, just being together. This isn't forever, Bjorn murmured into her hair. I will come for you. The moment it's safe, I will find you. Promise me. I promise. He pulled back to look at her face, memorizing her features. I love you. Tell me you know that. Tell me you believe me. I believe you, Indira said, and meant it. He kissed her then, gentle and fierce and heartbreaking. The mate bond thrummed between them, protesting the coming separation. When they finally broke apart, both had tears on their cheeks. I'll count the days, Bjorn said. So will I. At dawn, Indira stood in the courtyard with her small pack and an escort of 5 warriors, led by Marcus. Bjorn was there too, his face carefully composed for the watching servants and guards. But when he helped her onto the horse, his hand lingered on hers. Be safe, he said. Be strong. I'll find you. I know. Marcus gave the signal, and the horses moved forward. Indira looked back once, seeing Bjorn standing alone in the courtyard, his hand raised in farewell. Then they passed through the gates, and he was gone. The sanctuary was 3 days' journey north, through deep forests and hidden paths. Marcus was kind but professional, the warriors vigilant but silent. Indira spent the ride with one hand on her belly, feeling the baby's movements, trying not to think about how familiar this felt. Running, hiding, alone despite the guards surrounding her. She'd thought she was done running. She'd thought for a few precious weeks that she'd finally found a place to stand and fight, but the world, it seemed, wasn't finished testing her yet. On the 3rd evening, as the sanctuary came into view, a stone lodge tucked into a clearing surrounded by ancient trees, Indira felt the baby kick hard enough to make her gasp. Easy, little one, she murmured. We're safe here. Your father will come for us. He promised. She just had to believe it long enough to survive. Behind her, hidden in the shadows of the journey they'd traveled, the first council scouts marked their route and sent word back to their commanders. The sanctuary's location was secure. For now, 3 weeks felt like 3 years. Bjorn stood in the war room, staring at the map spread across the massive oak table, seeing nothing. His advisors spoke around him, something about grain stores and border patrols. But their voices were distant noise, meaningless against the constant howl of his wolf. Mate, Find mate, protect mate. The bond stretched between them like a living thing, thinned by distance, but unbreakable. He could feel Indira through it. Her fear, her loneliness, the way she tried to be brave for the baby. Every night he lay awake, his hand pressed to his chest where the bond anchored, and counted the days until he could bring her home. "My lord?" Marcus's voice cut through the fog. "Are you listening?" Bjorn forced himself to focus. His beta was watching him with concern that bordered on pity. "Say it again." The scouts report movement near the northern forests. Council forces, at least 24, heading toward... Marcus hesitated, his eyes darting to the other advisors present. Ice flooded Bjorn's veins. Heading where? We should discuss this privately. Bjorn swept the maps from the table with one violent motion, sending them scattering across the floor. The advisors jumped back. "Everyone out, now!" Marcus stays. The room emptied in seconds. The moment the door closed, Bjorn had Marcus by the front of his shirt, slamming him against the wall. "Tell me they're not going after her." "My lord, I just received the intelligence. Tell me!" The words came out as a growl, his wolf so close to the surface that his eyes flashed silver. Marcus didn't fight back, didn't even raise his hands to defend himself. They found the sanctuary. They're planning to move in force tomorrow at dawn. They have orders to take Indira into custody and contain the child after birth by any means necessary. Something broke inside Bjorn. The careful control he'd maintained for 3 weeks, the strategic patience, the political calculations, all of it shattered like glass. His wolf surged forward with such force that his bones began to crack, shift, his body struggling to contain the transformation. "My lord, please." Marcus's voice was strained. "Let me go. We need to think this through." "I'm done thinking." Bjorn released him, stepping back, forcing his wolf down through sheer will. "How long do we have?" "They move at dawn. If we ride now, hard, we might reach the sanctuary by tomorrow afternoon." "But Bjorn..." Marcus rarely used his given name, and it caught his attention. "If you do this, if you openly defy the council, there's no coming back. They'll declare you rogue. Every pack under council authority will be obligated to hunt you." "Let them try." Bjorn crossed to the weapon rack, selecting his preferred blades. Short swords he'd carried since he was 20, their grips worn smooth by his hands. "Rally the warriors. Anyone who's willing to stand with me, tell them to be ready to ride in 1 hour. Anyone who isn't, they have my blessing to stay behind with no consequences." "How many do you think will come?" Bjorn met his beta's eyes. "I don't know. I don't care. I'm going even if I have to go alone." Marcus's throat worked. Then he straightened, rolling his shoulders back. "You won't be alone. I'm with you. Always have been. Marcus, your father made me swear to protect you with my life. That oath didn't come with conditions." A fierce smile crossed his face. "Besides, you're an absolute disaster without me. You'd probably ride in the wrong direction." Despite everything, Bjorn felt a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly undid him. "Thank you, old friend. Thank me when we survive this." Marcus headed for the door. "I'll gather who I can. Be ready to move fast. Once word spreads about what we're doing, we'll have about 10 minutes before the whole fortress loses their minds." He was wrong. They had 5. Within minutes of Marcus spreading the word, warriors began assembling in the courtyard. Bjorn watched from his window, counting, his heart swelling with each arrival. 20, 30, 40 warriors, all armed and mounted, all knowing exactly what they were risking. Luna appeared at his door, her healer's bag already packed. "I'm coming too." "Luna, if this goes badly..." "That baby is going to need a healer, and Indira is my friend." Her chin lifted stubbornly. "Besides, someone needs to keep you idiots alive." Bjorn didn't have time to argue. He buckled on his weapons, threw on his riding cloak, and descended to the courtyard. His remaining advisors tried to intercept him on the stairs, voices raised in protest and pleading, but he pushed through without stopping. In the courtyard, 50 warriors sat mounted and ready. 50, out of a force of nearly 300. It wasn't an army, it was barely a skirmish force. But the faces looking at him held fierce loyalty, wolves who'd chosen their alpha over politics and fear. Bjorn swung onto his horse, a massive black stallion that had carried him through countless battles. You all know what we're riding toward. The Grand Council will declare this an act of treason. Anyone who follows me will share in that judgment. If any of you want to stay behind, now is the time. There will be no shame in it. Not a single warrior moved. Marcus guided his horse beside Bjorn's. Looks like you're stuck with us, my lord. Then, let's ride. Bjorn raised his voice so it carried across the assembled warriors. We protect our own, we protect our future, and we show the council that some bonds are stronger than their laws. For the pack! For the pack! The cry echoed back from 50 throats. They rode out through the fortress gates as the sun set, leaving behind chaos and uncertain loyalties. Bjorn didn't look back. His eyes were fixed north, toward Indira, toward his child, toward the future he refused to surrender. The bond pulled him forward like a compass. I'm coming, he sent through it, hoping somehow she could feel his determination. Hold on, I'm coming. They rode through the night, stopping only to rest the horses. Bjorn felt every minute as an agony, the bond stretched taut with Indira's growing distress. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, in the way his wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin. Near dawn of the second day, they encountered the first council forces. 20 warriors blocked the road ahead, wearing the council's colors. Their leader, a scarred wolf named Henrik, whom Bjorn recognized from previous council meetings, raised his hand in the signal to halt. Alpha King, Henrik called. We have orders to detain you and your warriors. Stand down and return to your territory. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed. Bjorn guided his horse forward until they were nearly face to face. Get out of my way. I can't do that. The council. I renounce the council's authority. The words rang out clear and strong. I claim the old rights, the ancient laws that existed before the council. My mate, my choice, my family, my protection. Any who stand between me and mine are enemies of my house. Henrik's expression hardened. Then you leave us no choice. The fight was brutal and efficient. Bjorn's warriors were outnumbered 2-1, but they fought with desperate fury. Bjorn himself shifted mid-leap, his massive wolf form tearing through the council line like they were paper. He didn't kill, not unless forced to, but he left broken bones and unconscious bodies in his wake. The council forces broke and scattered within minutes. Keep moving, Bjorn commanded, already shifted back to human form and remounting. Blood stained his clothes, but none of it was his. They'll send word ahead. We need to reach the sanctuary before reinforcements arrive. They rode harder, pushing the horses to their limits. The sun climbed toward noon. Bjorn could feel Indira through the bond, and what he felt made his blood run cold. Pain, fear, and something else, power, raw and unfamiliar, building like a storm. Something's happening, he said to Marcus, who rode at his side. The baby. We're close. Another hour, maybe less. Marcus's face was grim. Hold together, my lord. She needs you whole. Bjorn dug his heels into his horse's flanks, urging more speed. The bond pulled him forward, a beacon through the trees. Above them, smoke rose, dark and ominous. The sanctuary was under attack. At the sanctuary, Indira had woken before dawn to pain that stole her breath. The baby. It was too early. She was only 7 months along, but her body didn't care about timing. Contractions rippled through her, each one stronger than the last, and she knew with terrible certainty that her child was coming today. Help, she gasped, stumbling from her bed. Someone... The door burst open. Sarah, one of the sanctuary's guardians, rushed in with wide eyes. My lady, we have a problem. Council forces are approaching. At least 30 warriors. Another contraction hit, doubling Indira over. The baby's coming. Sarah's face went pale. Now? Now! Indira gripped the bedpost, breathing through the pain. Where's Luna? I need… Luna isn't here. You know that. It's just us. Sarah moved to her side, supporting her weight. The other guardians are preparing defenses, but my lady, we can't hold off 30 warriors. We're only 5. Fear crystallized into something colder, sharper. Indira had known this moment might come, had prepared herself mentally, but facing it was different. She was about to give birth while enemies closed in, with no mate, no healer, no real protection. Just her, the baby, and whatever strength she could find. "Help me to the bed," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Then bar the door. Don't let anyone in unless it's Bjorn. My lady, do it!" Sarah obeyed, helping Indira onto the bed before rushing to secure the door. Outside, shouts echoed, the sanctuary's guardians engaging the council forces. The sounds of fighting filtered through the walls, snarls, screams, the clash of weapons. Indira's wolf surged forward, desperate to help, to fight, but another contraction seized her, and she collapsed back against the pillows with a cry. "I need you to stay calm," Sarah said, moving to her side. She had no medical training, no experience with births, but her hands were gentle as she checked Indira's progress. "The baby is coming fast. You need to breathe through the pain. I am breathing." Indira broke off with another gasp as pressure built low in her belly. "Something's wrong. It's too early. What if Cassandra was right? What if my baby really is…" "Stop!" Sarah gripped her hand. "Your baby is fine. They're just impatient, like their mother." The fighting outside intensified. Something heavy slammed against the lodge's outer wall, shaking the whole structure. Then the sounds changed. Fewer voices from the guardians, more from the attackers. They were losing. "Sarah," Indira panted, "if they get through, if I don't survive, promise me you'll protect the baby. Run, hide them somewhere safe. You're going to be fine, both of you." A scream cut through the air, abruptly silenced. Then another. The sanctuary's defenders were falling. The door to Indira's room shuddered under a massive impact. Once, twice. The bar across it cracked. "Get behind me," Sarah said, her eyes flashing gold as her wolf came forward. "Whatever happens…" The door exploded inward. 3 assassins in black rushed through, weapons drawn. Sarah shifted mid-leap, her wolf form intercepting the first attacker. They went down in a tangle of fur and blades, crashing into the wall. The other 2 circled toward the bed. Indira tried to rise, but another contraction hit, the strongest yet, and she could only watch helplessly as the assassins approached. Their faces were cold, determined. They'd come to kill her baby, and she was powerless to stop them. "No," her wolf snarled. "Protect Pup! Protect!" Something shifted inside her, not the baby, but something else, something that had been sleeping in her blood since birth. Power surged through her veins like lightning, ancient and vast and terrifying. Her skin began to glow with a soft silver light. The assassins froze, uncertainty flickering across their faces. "What?" one began. Indira raised her hand, instinct guiding her, and the power responded. A shield of pure light erupted from her palm, expanding outward in a dome that encompassed the bed. When the assassins lunged forward, they bounced off it like they'd hit a wall. "Impossible," one snarled, striking the shield with his blade. It didn't even scratch. Sarah, still in wolf form, took advantage of their distraction. She leapt, her jaws closing around one assassin's throat. He went down. The other turned on her, raising his sword. Indira's power lashed out like a whip. The shield extended, catching the assassin mid-strike and flinging him backward. He hit the far wall hard enough to crack the wood and didn't get up. For a moment, there was silence. Sarah shifted back to human form, staring at Indira with wide eyes. "My lady, What did you— Another contraction, stronger than all the others, and Indira screamed. The shield flickered, but held. The pressure was unbearable, building towards something inevitable. The baby, she gasped. Sarah, I can't. I can't hold this much longer. You can. You will. Sarah moved back to the bed, checking again. I can see the head. You're almost there. One more big push. Indira bore down with everything she had, her power flaring brighter, filling the room with silver light. The pain peaked, crested, and suddenly, a baby's cry filled the air. It's a girl, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. She worked quickly, clearing the infant's mouth and nose, severing the cord. A beautiful, healthy girl. Indira's power dimmed as Sarah placed the baby on her chest. The infant was tiny, pink-skinned, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that hadn't yet focused, but somehow seemed to see everything. She wasn't glowing, wasn't surrounded by darkness or void. She was just a baby, perfect and miraculous and entirely normal. Aurora, Indira whispered, the name coming to her fully formed. Your name is Aurora. The baby made a small sound, her tiny hand wrapping around Indira's finger with surprising strength. Outside, the sounds of fighting had stopped. Footsteps approached the door, heavy, determined, multiple sets. Sarah tensed, moving between Indira and the entrance. The door, already destroyed, darkened with shadows. Then Bjorn's voice, hoarse and desperate. Indira? He crashed into the room, battle-worn and blood-stained, his eyes wild until they found her on the bed. Everything in his expression, the fear, the desperation, the fierce love, made Indira's chest ache. I'm here, she said. We're here. We're safe. Bjorn crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside the bed. His hand trembled as it reached for the baby, hovering, afraid to touch. Is she healthy? Perfect. Indira guided his hand to Aurora's tiny back. Your daughter. Something broke in Bjorn's expression. Tears spilled down his cheeks as he stared at the baby, at their baby, with wonder and disbelief. Aurora, he breathed. Hello, little one. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. Aurora's eyes opened and somehow, impossibly, they found his face. Her tiny hand reached up, fingers grasping at air. Bjorn offered his finger, and she latched onto it with that same surprising strength. Through the mate bond, Indira felt his emotions crash over him. Joy and relief and love so strong it nearly consumed him. Council forces are regrouping, Marcus said from the doorway, his expression apologetic for the interruption. We have maybe 10 minutes before they mount another assault. We need to move. We're not running, Bjorn said, not looking away from Aurora. Not anymore. If they want to fight, we fight here. But I'm done hiding my family. Indira felt the bond flare between them, fed by the moment, by the baby in her arms, by everything they'd endured to reach this point. Together, she said. Whatever comes, we face it together. Bjorn finally tore his eyes from Aurora to look at Indira. In his gaze, she saw everything she'd been too afraid to hope for: acceptance, devotion, unwavering support. Together, he agreed. Outside, the sound of approaching warriors grew louder. The final confrontation was coming, and this time, there would be no escape. But as Indira looked at her mate and her daughter, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. They moved to the sanctuary's main hall, a large room with high ceilings and windows that let in the morning light. Bjorn's warriors formed a protective circle, weapons drawn, while Indira sat in a chair near the hearth with Aurora bundled in her arms. Luna had arrived with the warriors and immediately began fussing over both mother and baby, pronouncing them miraculously healthy. The placenta delivered cleanly, no tearing, and the baby's breathing is strong, Luna said, her professional assessment at odds with the tears in her eyes. You did it, Indira. You brought her through. We're not safe yet, Indira murmured, watching the windows. Outside, council forces were assembling, at least 50 warriors now, with more arriving. They filled the clearing, a sea of hostile faces and drawn weapons. Bjorn stood at the main entrance, his massive frame blocking the doorway. Marcus was at his right, the other warriors fanned out in defensive positions. The tension was so thick, Indira could barely breathe through it. Then the council forces parted, and Helene stepped forward. Behind her came 3 other council members, all wearing their formal robes despite the mud and blood spattering them. Alpha King Bjorn, Helene called. Your rebellion ends here. Surrender the woman and child, and we will show mercy to your warriors. No. Bjorn's voice carried absolute certainty. Then you doom them all to share your fate. Helene gestured, and archers in the council ranks raised their bows. Final warning. Stand aside or watch your people die. My people choose to stand with me. Bjorn glanced back at his warriors, and Indira saw pride in his expression. Because they understand what you don't, that some things are worth dying for. Spoken like a fool, blinded by a mate bond. Helene's contempt was clear. That child is cursed. Every moment she lives endangers us all. She's not cursed. Indira stood, Aurora cradled carefully against her chest, and moved to Bjorn's side. Her legs were shaky, her body still recovering from birth, but she refused to hide. Look at her. Does she look like destruction to you? The prophecy? Your prophecy is wrong. Indira felt her power stir again, responding to the threat, silver light beginning to glow beneath her skin. Or maybe you just misunderstood it. You were so afraid of change that you couldn't see possibility in it. Aurora stirred in her arms, making a small sound. Then, impossibly, the baby began to glow. Soft light emanated from Aurora's tiny form, not silver like Indira's, but gold, warm and beautiful like sunrise. It spread outward in gentle waves, washing over everyone present. Where it touched, something shifted. Indira felt it through the mate bond first, the way the light connected her to Bjorn, amplifying what was already there. Love and trust and fierce protectiveness flowed between them, stronger than ever, and she realized the light wasn't just coming from Aurora. It was coming from all 3 of them, their powers merging, creating something new. The light reached Bjorn's warriors next. She felt their loyalty solidify, transform into something deeper. Pack bonds, true and unbreakable, connecting them all. They were no longer just warriors following orders. They were family, bound by choice and love and shared purpose. Then the light reached the council forces. Helene gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Around her, warriors lowered their weapons with expressions of confusion and wonder. The hostility in their faces melted away, replaced by something softer, more uncertain. What? Helene's voice cracked. What is this? The truth of the prophecy, Bjorn said quietly. Not destruction, but healing. Not the end of wolf society, but its rebirth. Aurora's light intensified, and through it, Indira felt something extraordinary. She felt every wolf present, felt their hearts, their fears, their hopes. She felt the old wounds in their society, the territorial divisions and power struggles and centuries of mistrust that had fractured their people. And she felt those wounds beginning to heal. The mark of the void, Helene whispered, staring at Aurora with dawning understanding. It was never about absence. It was about balance. The void between territories, between packs. She's meant to fill it. She's meant to unite us, Indira said, her own understanding crystallizing, to remind us that we're all wolves, all connected, that the bonds between us are stronger than any borders or councils. The light began to fade, but its effects remained. The council warriors stood uncertain, their orders to attack suddenly feeling wrong in a way they couldn't articulate. Helene's face was pale, her conviction shaken. This changes everything, one of the other council members said. his voice awed. "It changes nothing." Caden's voice cut through the moment like a blade. He pushed through the council ranks, his face twisted with rage. "This is a trick, an illusion. The child is cursed, and I will see it destroyed." He shifted mid-leap, his wolf form massive and brown, teeth bared as he lunged for Indira and Aurora. Bjorn moved to intercept, but he wasn't fast enough. Indira's power exploded outward, her shield snapping into place with such force that Caden bounced off it and crashed to the ground 10 feet away. Her eyes blazed silver as she stared him down. "Touch my daughter," she said, her voice resonating with ancient power, "and I will end you." Caden rose slowly, his wolf form dwarfed by the force of Indira's presence. For the first time, real fear crossed his features. He shifted back to human form, stumbling backward. "She's not human," he said to the council members. "You see? She's something else. Something—" "Powerful," Helene interrupted, and her tone had changed, less certain, more contemplative. "The old bloodlines. I thought they were extinct, but the texts spoke of shield-bearers, protectors who could channel the moon goddess's power directly." "My mother's line," Indira said, the knowledge rising from somewhere deep in her blood memory. "She died when I was young. I never knew what I carried." "The child awakened it," Luna said, her healer's insight cutting through. "Pregnancy, especially with such a powerful child, can trigger dormant bloodline abilities." Bjorn moved to Indira's side, his arm coming around her shoulders, supporting, not protecting. They stood together, Aurora between them, a family united. "So what happens now?" Marcus asked, his question directed at the council members. "You came to destroy what you feared. Will you try again, knowing what you know?" Helene looked at her fellow council members, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, she stepped forward, and to Indira's shock, she knelt. "We were wrong," Helene said, her voice carrying to everyone present. "We let fear guide us instead of wisdom. We tried to destroy what we should have protected." She looked up at Aurora, wonder in her aged eyes. The prophecy spoke true. This child will change everything, but not through destruction, through unity. One by one, the other council members knelt. Then the warriors, first Bjorn's, then slowly, hesitantly, the council forces. Even some of Caden's coalition, their loyalty shaken by Aurora's light. Only Caden remained standing, his face purple with rage and humiliation. "This is insanity," he spat. "You're all fools. That child is under my protection," Bjorn said coldly, "as is her mother, and anyone who threatens them again will answer to me personally. Is that clear, Caden?" Caden's hands clenched into fists, but he was outnumbered and outmatched. Finally, he turned on his heel and stalked away, his remaining loyalists following. Helene rose, the others following her lead. "There is much to discuss, much to rebuild. The council has operated on outdated fears for too long. Perhaps—" she glanced at Aurora. "Perhaps it's time for new leadership, new vision." "Perhaps," Bjorn agreed carefully. "For now, know that you have the council's protection, not its enmity. The child, Aurora, she will be honored, not hunted." Helene bowed formally to Indira. "And you, shield-bearer, have our respect and apology. We nearly destroyed something precious through our ignorance." Indira felt tears prick her eyes, the weight of months of fear finally lifting. "Thank you." As the council forces began to disperse, packing up their camp with the efficiency of soldiers relieved to avoid battle, Bjorn guided Indira back inside the sanctuary. The main hall was warm and bright, filled with his warriors and Luna, all of them watching Aurora with the wonder new life deserved. "Can I hold her?" Marcus asked hesitantly, and Indira smiled, carefully transferring the baby to his arms. The massive beta looked terrified and delighted in equal measure, cradling Aurora like she was made of glass. Bjorn pulled Indira aside to a quiet corner, his hands framing her face. "I thought I'd lost you. When I felt you go into labor through the bond, when I saw the smoke from the fighting, You came, Indira interrupted. You fought through everything to reach us. That's what matters. I'll always come for you. His certainty was absolute. Both of you. You're my family now, my everything. Indira rose on her toes, mindful of her exhaustion, and kissed him. The mate bond sang between them, complete and perfect, and when they pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. Take us home, she whispered. All three of us. Take us home. Bjorn's answering smile was radiant as sunrise. 3 months later, Indira stood on the balcony of their private chambers, the royal chambers that Bjorn had cleared for her on that first day, and watched the sun set over the kingdom. Aurora was asleep in her cradle nearby, growing stronger and more beautiful each day, her power evident in the way she could make people smile just by looking at them. The Grand Council had been reformed, its membership expanded to include more diverse voices, and its authority checked by new agreements that protected individual alphas' rights to their mate choices. Helene had stepped down, replaced by a younger, more progressive wolf named Dimitri, who seemed genuinely interested in building bridges rather than walls. Packs that had feared Aurora's prophecy now sent gifts and requests for alliance. The fortress was bustling with delegates, all eager to meet the child who'd changed everything. But right now, in this moment, it was just Indira and the sunset, and the sound of footsteps approaching. Bjorn's arms came around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Luna says you're fully recovered. Finally. Finally, Indira agreed, leaning back into his warmth. Birth had been hard, recovery harder, but Luna had been adamant about waiting until Indira's body had healed completely before. The ceremony is ready, Bjorn murmured against her neck. Whenever you are. No rush. The mating ceremony. The final step in accepting the bond, in making their connection permanent and complete. They'd waited deliberately, wanting to ensure Indira was strong enough, that Aurora was settled, that their new life was stable. Tonight, Indira said, turning in his arms to face him. I want it to be tonight. Bjorn's eyes blazed silver. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She rose up to kiss him, slow and deep and promising. You're mine, Bjorn Frostwalker, and it's time everyone knew it officially. The ceremony took place in the fortress's sacred grove, under a full moon with their closest family present. Marcus stood as Bjorn's witness, Luna as Indira's. Aurora slept peacefully in a sling across Luna's chest, her presence a blessing on the proceedings. The pack's priestess, an ancient wolf named Vera with silver hair and knowing eyes, performed the ritual with words that predated the council, predated all modern pack structures. She spoke of moon bonds and fate threads, of two souls recognizing their match across time and space. Bjorn and Indira stood facing each other, hands clasped, as Vera wrapped a silver cord around their wrists. Do you, Bjorn, Alpha King of the Northern Realm, accept this bond in all its complexity, through joy and sorrow, strength and weakness, peace and war? I accept it all, Bjorn said, his voice strong and sure. I accept her, wholly and completely, as my mate and my equal. Do you, Indira, shield-bearer of the ancient bloodlines, accept this bond in all its complexity? Through joy and sorrow, strength and weakness, peace and war? I accept it all, Indira said, tears streaming down her face. I accept him, wholly and completely, as my mate and my heart. Vera smiled, raising her hands to the moon. Then, by the light of our mother goddess, by the bonds of pack and blood and choice, I declare you mated. What the moon has joined, let no force tear asunder. The bond between them, already strong, suddenly blazed like lightning. Indira gasped as it locked into place, permanent and unbreakable, connecting her soul to Bjorn's in ways she'd never imagined possible. She felt his love, his strength, his unwavering dedication as clearly as her own heartbeat. Bjorn pulled her into his arms, kissing her with fierce joy as their pack celebrated around them. Aurora woke and added her small voice to the festivities, and the sound of their daughter's happy cries was the most beautiful music Indira had ever heard. Later, in their chambers with Aurora asleep in her cradle, Bjorn and Indira finally completed their bond in the most intimate way. The physical joining was transcendent, made perfect by the emotional and spiritual connection already established. When it was over, they lay tangled together, the mate bond singing with contentment. "I love you," Indira whispered against his chest. "I don't think I've said it enough, but I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too." Bjorn's hand traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "From the moment I found you on that mountain, I loved you. I just didn't have the words for it yet." "What do you think happens now?" Indira asked. "With Aurora's destiny, with the prophecy." "I think we raise her to be strong and kind and brave, just like her mother." Bjorn pressed a kiss to her forehead. "And when she's ready, when the time comes, she'll heal the wounds in our society. But for now, she's just our daughter, and that's enough." Indira thought about the journey that had brought her here, the rejection, the exile, the terror of being hunted while pregnant and alone. All of it had been necessary to lead her to this moment, to this man, to this family. What Cassandra had called a curse had been the greatest blessing of her life. "More than enough," she agreed, settling deeper into Bjorn's embrace as sleep began to claim her. "It's everything." Through the window, moonlight spilled across the room, bathing them all in silver light. Aurora stirred, her tiny hand reaching toward the window as if greeting the moon goddess herself. And in that sacred moment, with her mate's arms around her and her daughter safe, Indira finally understood what it meant to be home.